You know, Seattle's a very interesting place in terms of its diversity. Not to say that it's perfect, but it's not necessarily a diversity that became imposed. It's a diversity that came from essentially people who started settling in the area. Now, there's a side of history that we don't usually hear about, especially around the gay community, and that is the history of the Latino community. I paid a visit to some friends at the agency Entre Hermanos to talk a little bit more about the Latino community and its HIV/AIDS prevention 20 years back and present. And I found out some very interesting things about Latino history in the community, and our friend Sergio offers some recommendations for the future.
Bueno, por aquí oíamos, digamos, pues de gente que se iba y se hacía la prueba del VIH.
We would hear about people who went to go get tested, but that was at a point when they were showing symptoms. They were very sick. They had already had the diagnostic of AIDS. This scared so many Latinos, and in a way, prevented them from going out to seek testing for fear of having to go through what the others had experienced.
Una prueba del VIH, porque creían que les iba a suceder lo mismo o que iban a pasar por lo mismo. Bueno, sí, ayudábamos.
So we took it upon ourselves to help by distributing condoms to Latinos who we knew were gay. It was a small group. So we helped a person at an agency set up workshops for education and prevention. We continue to direct people in their direction for continued education and support. To think of it now, it's funny because we did them at people's houses, but this was the way we could speak openly about HIV.
Bueno, lo que pasa es de que mi orientación es muy definida y aquí en Seattle tenemos la suerte de que Seattle en el aspecto gay es muy,
Well, my orientation is very well defined, and we are lucky that in Seattle, in terms of being gay, we have better opportunities to be out. Now, different from other cities, we have lots of information, access to medical, health information, psychological services, and lots of cultural events that are related to being gay.
Consideración entre la gente straight y los gays. No hay este conflicto.
Being gay in Seattle is very easy. We have positive consideration with straight people. There's not such a great conflict that you may see in other cities like Los Angeles or even Mexico City, where it is difficult to be gay. I don't have to worry if I'm holding my lover's hand in Capitol Hill, or in the street for that matter. But in terms of being of Latino identity, that's my worry. I would like to demonstrate more what it means to be Latino, because my gay side is already covered.
Todo eso, pero también a veces el hecho de que tú te vayas no quiera decir que dejes ya de apoyar.
The fact that it's possible to move around doesn't mean that you right away take away your support or do something for your community. I felt that this has affected our community, also the LGBT community, generally, regardless of ethnicity. You leave and somehow there is a feeling that the mission is somehow complete. This is very important. Just because of the fact that you are able to move into new spaces does not offer dispensation from being a member of the community that propelled you forward.
Alas, all good things come to an end. Check if Chris is still awake over there. Thank you. To end this episode, I'd like to introduce you to someone I very much admire, and this is Stormy Weber. Stormy Weber is an artist with international renown. Stormy has been at the helm of this project called Voices Rising, in which she bridges mentorship and the arts. Now, I'll let her tell you a little bit about it.
Voices Rising is a project which is devoted to the support and encouragement of the arts and culture of LGBTQ people of color. Being Black Native myself, I tend to work with people of color, lesbians, bisexual, transgender people. So I've done this in New York, in Europe, and I've come back home to Seattle and I started it here. My work for over the last 30 years has been in cultural production I have worked over the last 30 years as an artist, as a producing artist, organizing cultural events, working as a spoken word performer, vocalist, working in theater, and also working with visual art. I think that the work of Voices Rising definitely is not at all limited to the LGBTQ community. We exist with the stated mission to build bridges across communities. And certainly as an artist, and you know yourself as an artist, we don't think in small boxes. And especially at this historical moment, I think that people are really looking for answers and looking for new ways of relating with one another, of building community, of surviving whatever challenges we have right now and whichever challenges are before us. So it's definitely not a project limited only to one small group. We have begun working with allies. We produced a show, a book party for a 76-year-old woman who wrote a book called 67 Secret Years. Her name is Lois Bernstein, and her book was about surviving abuse and surviving domestic violence. And she's a human rights activist. She's an ally. She took us on as our grandmother. So we are trying to sort of really create a family and create a community with our work. I think that the good that comes from the LGBTQ community, and particularly the LGBTQ of color community, where I work myself, is generally that marginalized peoples in general have a great deal to offer the society. Because we have had to make our peace and understand so many different ways of existing in the world, that we have particular strengths, I think, and particular blessings that we can share with the world. And especially at this moment in time when there are so many crises at every other second, I think that the roles that we have to play are very important. Well, I just think that, I just hope that people are inspired to think creatively and to think spiritually and to go beyond what necessarily the culture tells us, to so that we can all help one another to revision the world that we live in and to create a society that is based on justice and is based on peace and is based on equality. That's what I hope. I hope that art, in whatever small way, anything that I can help to create and bring into this world can be a positive force in that way.
Mostly simple things. Hiking, the mountains, trees, birds, others,
music, maybe watching people on the street, waiting in line and just looking at a sign, like anything that distracts me, anything shiny.
Yes. Okay. It's funny, you don't have a script. You're asking me all these questions and you don't have a script.